Hello. Just want to thank everyone for attending today. It's such a beautiful day, and the family really appreciates you coming to share this moment and spend some time listening to some stories and celebrating the life of Mitzi, Mitsu, Saito, Suzuki. I just want to acknowledge all the email, texts, and phone calls received by our family regarding our mom's passing. Uh, there were many words describing our mom as favorite aunt, role model, friendly, hardworking, caring, tentative, kind, supportive, great cook, baker, a quilter, gardener, seamstress, artist, photographer, and fisher. I don't think there's anything that Mom did that she didn't do well. When I look back at her old photo albums, I was struck by her beauty, her eye for fashion, and always looking her best. I remember she always gave us the look over when we got dressed in the morning just to make sure that it met her approval. One thing she taught us at an early age was how to iron, and so we never had an excuse for wearing a wrinkled shirt or top. She made sure that we grew up to be polite, respectful, and kind. I do not ever recall her swear or say a derogatory thing about anything or anyone. She would say little about her childhood, especially the internment years. She followed the saying from the Disney movie Bambi, Thumper the Rabbit. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Mom's favorite plant flower was the African violet. We've arranged to have some African violets in the reception area. Dad would always buy Mom azaleas for special occasions, but after Ellen started her flower shop, which is across the street from here, Dad always came in and bought red roses. For Christmas, Dad would get Debbie to buy presents for him, for Mom. I don't think Mom ever knew that Debbie was doing all the shopping. Mom loved to listen to music. We had a cabinet stereo with a turntable, and Mom would have it on, playing music while doing housework, cooking, or baking. She listened to Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Anne Murray, Herb Alpert, and Tijuana Brass. Her favorite singer was Engelbert Humperdinck. I'm now going to pass the mic to my brother, who will do the eulogy, and I'm sure he has some memories that he also has to add. So.
Just again, thanks everybody for attending to celebrate my mom, Mitzi Sato's life. For those who don't know me, my name's Mike Saito. I'm the Tosh and Mitzi's third and final child. I'm just the baby. To avoid any confusion, I'll let you know right now that I'll flip and flop between Mitzi and Mom, since she's not all your mums. Okay. First rule, no crying during the eulogy. Okay. So Mitzi was quite accomplished in her own way, but she was often overshadowed by her husband Tosh, not in a bad or ominous way, but Dad. For those who know Dad, he was just this larger than life guy. He was charismatic, respected by everybody, could fix anything, build anything, and would help anybody fix or build whatever they needed fixed or built. Everybody knew him, and he knew everybody's name. But because of Dad, I don't think we quite appreciated everything Mom did. Like Bob had mentioned, she was an accomplished seamstress. She made a lot of clothes for us when we were kids, until we wanted brand labels. She dabbled in charcoal sketching, oil painting, water painting. She was an exceptional gardener. Plants flourished in her garden, flower beds, hanging baskets, and vegetable garden. And she was a superb cook. She didn't just cook, she baked. Like desserts, pies, cakes, cookies. When I was a kid, we had dessert every day. Like nowadays, it has to be a special occasion to have dessert. But back then, you didn't need a special occasion to have dessert in Mitzi Saito's house. We had dessert every night. It was great. And there was always tins and tins of cookies in the freezer downstairs. Unfortunately for Mom, frozen chocolate chip cookies were my staple diet during studying late at night. So I remember one day she was mad at me because she had company over, and she went downstairs to get cookies, and several tins had one lonely cookie left in it. I thought I was doing her a favor by leaving a cookie, but she didn't seem to appreciate it. But Mom made great cookies. Tasha's beautiful bride. She cooked, baked, gardened, sewed, painted, and quilted. She even mowed the lawn. Just a sec. Yeah, I married my wife for her looks. Okay. Sorry, I'm on a tight schedule. I have to get going. Okay. So, Mitzi was born August 15th, 1931 in Pitt Meadows, BC, to Saito and Kuni Suzuki. She was the second of 5 children, Ruth, Mitz, Tosh, Taki, and Cuz. She was 10 years old when Japan attacked the United States, and in early 1942, Japanese Canadians were forcibly removed from the BC coast. Wanting to keep their young family together, Kuni and Saito chose to work in the sugar beet farms in Manitoba rather than go to the internment camps in BC. Sometimes if you went to internment camps, able-bodied men were taken away from the family and they had to work in road camps. So they wanted to keep the family together. They moved to southern Manitoba, and they were there from 42 to 1952. Like Bob said, Mom didn't like telling stories about the internment. I think it was pretty difficult. It was cold in the winters, it was poor living conditions. She had to either work in the fields, or if she didn't work in the fields, she had to babysit her younger siblings while her parents both worked the fields. So she wasn't able to enjoy her childhood. When we were kids, it was like pulling teeth trying to get them to talk about the internment, because we'd bug Mom and Dad to tell us stories. And once in a while, Dad would tell us stories. He said his family moved to Westwold, just outside of Kamloops. And they moved there in the spring, and the local school, the teacher said, well, there's only a couple months left in the year, and you don't have to come to school. His dad said there was a creek near the house, it's full of trout. It was like a nice sunny day like today, they'd be fishing down in the creek, sitting in the grass. All the other kids in school. Sounded great. About that time in the story, Mom would interject, and she'd get mad at Dad. She said, it wasn't fun during the internment. Like, I had it really tough. So she said, don't tell them stories like that. And she said that was a Japanese saying, shikata ganai. And it's like it happened, it's fate, unavoidable. There's nothing that can be done to change it. And so accept it, don't complain, don't dwell on it, move on, try to forget about it, and the best way to forget about it was to not tell stories about it. So a lot of the older Japanese, they just didn't like talking about the internment. They shikata ganai. So it may have been unpleasant, but can't do anything about it. Move on, and that's all she said about the internment. So in 1952, the Suzuki family moved back to BC. They bought a 10-acre parcel in Surrey. Just south of them, the Saito family, they had also moved to Surrey from Kamloops. Now, Sadeo Suzuki, he needed a tractor to plow his fields, but he didn't have one, and fortuitously, the Saitos had one, and the Saito boy Tosh was all willing to come over and plow the fields as long as the Suzuki daughter, Mitzi, was around the home. So Tosh courted Mitzi, and they married on November 20th, 1954, after the plowing season. It was probably like, "Sir, I'd like your permission to marry your daughter." And Saito said, "Yeah, as long as you plow my fields every April and September." Similar to my situation a couple of weeks ago, I was on the ferry to Main Island, and my daughter's boyfriend, who's a plumber, he says, "Mike, is it cool if I marry Stephanie?" I said, "Yeah, as long as you fix the toilet in the cabin." I just, when I'm writing this, I realized that was stupid. I should have asked for toilet installation for life. True story. September 1st, 1957, first son, Robert Bruce Kiyoshi Saito, was born in New Westminster. And Mom was flying solo on that one. Tosh was at the movie theater watching Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments. True story. Okay. 1958, Tosh and Mitzi purchased 2.5 acres in Surrey, just down the street from here. Tosh built a 2-story house with an attached 2-car garage, and that was their home for the next 34 years, where they raised their family. Mitzi, Tosh, and Bob were settled into the house when Debbie was born, May 1st, 1960. And then Mom said there was a bit of an oops on November 22nd, 1961. That would have been me. Yeah, and when Mom and Dad were upset with us, they'd always talk in Japanese, and occasionally I'd catch her shaking her head and look at me, and she'd go, "Michael, shikata kanai." I go, I'm standing right here. I don't think you're supposed to use that phrase in that context about your kid. She is like, "Shikata kanai." Anyways, okay, a pivotal time in our life was in 1968. That's when Dad started fishing in Active Pass. And he started going, it was good fishing back then, always limited out, big fish. And he was going every weekend with his friend John Bailey. Mom didn't fish at the start, but she realized that the only way she was going to see Dad was if she started fishing too. So she started to fish and took the whole family along. So the whole family fished, and everything was fishing. So in the summers, we'd go over to Active Pass. We'd either camp on Galliano Island and spend the week fishing, or we'd rent cabins on Main Island and we'd fish there. And then in 1970, Dad bought a boat, new boat. In 74, he bought property. They bought property, built a cabin, and they fished. In the summers, pretty well every weekend was fishing on Main Island. And Mom and Dad were great fishing partners. Dad drove the boat, Mom found the fish. Mitzi was a top-notch fisherwoman. And they fished a lot. So they did that for the next 4 decades, always fishing. Meanwhile, back on the mainland, in the 70s, Mitzi figured that the baby in the family was old enough to fend for himself, so she decided to get a paying job, and she got a job at the Bay. Even though she worked this part-time job, she still had time to do everything around the house that she wanted to. Besides her cooking, cleaning, and gardening gigs, she also painted, exterior, interior. She climbed ladders, cleaned gutters, pruned trees, rototillered the garden. Like, if not for Mom's work around the house, everything she did, Dad wouldn't have had the time to do what he did. So they say behind every great man is a greater wife. And so that was Mom. Mom made Dad a great man. In 1992, Tosh and Mitzi retired, and they sold their house in 93 and moved to Main Island. Bought a motorhome, became snowbirds. So they fished in the summer, went down south for a couple months every winter. Dad was involved in the Lions Club, Mom was in the Quilters Club, and retired life on Main Island went pretty swimmingly for the next 8 years or so. Dad suffered a stroke in 2010, which resulted in limited strength in his left arm and leg, and he was pretty good, but he needed extra attention. So, and Mom did that. Mitzi was never averse to putting her needs ahead of others. Unfortunately, Dad passed away in June 2016. They were married for 61 years. You know what they say about couples who have stayed married for that long? They must have been crazy in love. Now, from what I saw, Mom and Dad had a pretty good marriage. Couldn't ask for much more. We weren't flush with money, but we never lacked anything we needed or wanted. They're good role models, and they raised 3 wonderful kids. They created a strong family unit and did most everything together, never apart for more than a couple days, just when we went fishing up to Spencer's Bridge. They didn't argue much, and they worked things out. For example, the meatloaf story. You knew I was going to tell that. Okay. When I was a kid, we had meatloaf once a week, every week. Meatloaf Monday, it's like clockwork. I liked it best when Mom baked the ketchup on it. And then one day, I think it was around 73, when I was maybe 12, it's just like, stopped having meatloaf. No more meatloaf. It's cold turkey. It was like all the meatloaf trees died. Okay. 3-4 years later, I found out why. Apparently, one day, Dad told Mom, said, "Mitz, I don't really like meatloaf." And Mom was, well, to her credit, she was more surprised than offended. And she's like, "Well, why didn't you tell me before? I've been making meatloaf for the last 15 years. And he just said, "Well, I didn't want to hurt your feelings." So Mom stopped making meatloaf. So 2 things. First, my dad was a saint. He sucked it up for 15 years, eating something he didn't like because he didn't want to hurt his wife's feeling. So 2 thumbs up. Okay. 2, Mom's actions were equally commendable in that she didn't take offense to what could have been perceived as a slight on her cooking. And she acknowledged Tosh's 15 years of sacrifice. So top shelf for Mom. Like, she didn't shoot back with something like, well, if you don't like my cooking, you can go to the place across the street. Or, yeah, well, if you want your wife to cook like your mother does, maybe you should have married your mother. Like, who says that, right? I had to get that out. I feel much better now. Okay. So that's a snapshot of Mitzi's life through the eyes of the baby. Although I am the baby, I guess I'm an old man now, really. Sadly, I'm at the age, and my friends and cousins are all at the age where these events are happening more often than we'd like. It's part of the cycle of life. Mom's passing just leaves a bit of an empty space in all of us. After 61 years together, I imagine that the last 10 years without Tosh were pretty tough on Mom. But I think we can take some comfort in the belief that they're back together. Okay, that's all I have. Thanks for listening. Not that you had a choice.
Thanks, Mike. I'm getting a bit of a stare at the back of the room there because we're running a little late. We still have a few speakers to go, so I'd just like to call on Mom's youngest sister, Kaz, to come forward, and she has a few stories to tell.
Mike, you're a hard act to follow. I'm Mitzi's youngest sister. I'm the youngest in 5 siblings. I was born in Manitoba and did my schooling in Surrey, BC. I'm already, anyways. I'm the youngest of the 5, but I won't refer to myself as baby of the family. I think I'm just too old for that now. Ruth was my eldest sister. She and Mitzi were just 1 year apart, so they went to school together and were very close and were best of friends. In 2014, Ruth passed away and left Mitzi shattered. She would say to me, you know, I talk to Ruth every day. We don't talk about anything in particular, but we just talk. And then sadly, 2 years later, Tosh, her husband, passed away. And I think that just shattered Smiths totally. It was a very hard and sad time for her. There was 5 of us in the family. Ruth being the oldest, Mitzi second, and then Tosh, my older brother. And then there's a big gap in between, and there was Taki, and he and I were 1.5 years apart. So I never really was close to Mitzi as sisters, but she was like my mother. She was my mother. She was my role model. I admired her. I wanted to be like her. She was gorgeous, and she could do everything. Anything she tried to do, she just gave it her 100% and excelled. And I'll always remember the influence she was in my life. I don't know what I would have done without her. Growing up, I mentioned earlier, Mitzi was my role model. She was my mentor. I'm so thankful I had her. She taught me so much. I learned so much through watching her. And like Mike said, you know, she did everything. Everything she did, she just did so well. She had so many interests and hobbies, and she did all them well. I remember when I was just a young girl yet, and she would sketch, and she seemed to like drawing horses. That was the day when we had cowboys and Indians. We don't say that now, but so Western shows. And, but yeah, she would draw horses, cowboys, and then she went on to do other paintings. And she did a lot of crocheting, knitting. I don't know how many Cowichan sweaters she made. Lately, I just found that Michael said that he had 3. My dad probably had 3 or 4. Tosh, her husband, probably had 3 or 4. So she probably made a few dozen of those. And she would just be watching TV and out come a sweater. Yeah, she was good. What do I shouldn't want to? She used to give my mom and I home perms, and I had a thick head of hair. and I had a habit of I couldn't keep awake if I sat still too long. So anyways, when she's putting all these curlers in my hair, I would doze off. And of course it would upset her. It made double the work. So then she would take a basin of water, put ice in it, and put my feet in it. That worked. And I thought it was pretty mean, but later I understood that she had to do something. Yeah, she was very giving. She was very humble. In my younger years, later teens, I smoked, and Mitzi, she didn't like smoking, and her family, nobody smoked, and so. But when you went to Mitzi's place, out come the ashtray. She knew you were a smoker, but she was willing to give of herself, and smoke is awful when you don't smoke. And I've quit and have quit for years since then. So, but looking back, she had to be very patient and be very, accepting of other people's behavior without condemning them for it. And she was in that way too. Again, she was a wonderful person. People used to ask me often because they asked, did you speak Japanese? And I says, yeah, I did. And she says, well, how did you learn English? And looking back, I realized that I learned from Mitzi and Ruth because they spoke. I just thought I just grew up doing it, but because they taught us. So that's why my English was so well. People couldn't understand why I knew it and what my first language was, because they would ask, what is your first language? I says, I don't know. I just remember just speaking both languages. But I think it was English. When Mitzi first returned to BC from Manitoba, she worked in the fish cannery in Westminster. And then she went on to work for a company called Arrow. Arrow made dress shirts, which we don't see anymore. They were dress shirts with the long sleeves and cuffs, and that's when the men had to wear cufflinks. And I don't even know if a lot of people know what cufflinks are today, but the company is probably not there either. And now we have dress shirts that, we get them, $1.49 day. We don't have that anymore either. We were talking about all Mitzi's interests and accomplishments, and Mike mentioned a lot of the things she did, and there wasn't too much that she didn't do. But she actually refinished furniture too. The dining room table and that she stripped down to the bare wood and just redid it all. She excelled. And I won't go over all her interests, but in her sewing it was exceptional. She sewed her own wedding dress at 22 years old. And then years later, she sewed Debbie's wedding dress and also the dresses for all her attendants and the flower girls' dresses, and not to mention all the clothes she sewed for herself. I did, on occasion, babysit Mitzi's children, but that was very rare because their family went everywhere with them. They never went anywhere where kids weren't allowed. So these occasions wouldn't only be a funeral or a wedding where it was adults only or this type of thing. I think their aspiration in life was everything was family. They did everything. They worked together, played together, and as the saying goes, it's, you work together, play together, you stay together, and they certainly did. And they gave their children that foundation, and I'm very envious of their family and how to look at them now. They are a model family. Mom and Dad left them the foundation. They've carried on, and they're successful and doing great and happy and all together. the friendships and that they have within the family with each other is beautiful. It's congratulations. I don't know if I've said everything because at first I forgot my notes. And my son had to go home and pick them up for me, and meanwhile my mind went kind of blank. So anyways, most things were spoken about, covered with Mike anyway, but I want to thank everybody for coming and sharing in this time of sorrow and sadness. It's a great loss to all of us. Anybody who knew Mitzi, she really touched our lives. And for you all to, again, thank you and drive safely. Take care. Thank you.